In this class, we're going to go into the last type of factorising. So let's take it back up to the top. Highest common factor, including grouping. Highest common factor questions we've completed. And difference to squares we've completed. I've obviously just given you the homework file there, so just make sure that the little issues we had with that are kind of getting cleared up. So we're going to move on now to trinomials. There's a couple of different methods to do trinomials. Like I said this when I introduced it. Even if you look, I was only just looking at your book there, it goes through method 1, method 2, method 3. Like, I suppose I've definitely taught 2 of the 3 anyway, and my general experience with the guide number is that more people understand it. Okay, so not to say that like half or 3/4 of our class wouldn't understand the first method in your book. It's just I feel like more people understand the guide number and more people are likely to get the right answer. Now, in saying that, like, this is new, so this is going to take practice. So I'm going to do maybe 2 here so you have it on video to be able to do it, and then for homework I'm going to give you like whatever, same as I've been giving you like 3 or 4. My suggestion would be, like, whenever you have time, whether it's studying for your summer exam, whatever, do more than 3. Okay, this is a kind of a muscle memory. You just need to practice and practice and practice, and then once it gets in your brain, it's never going to fall back out again. You'll still remember how to do this, because you need to be able to do a guide number right up until, like, you'll be doing guide numbers in your leaving cert. Okay, so these, I would imagine if we were in class, you'd kind of all be sitting there blankly, like, not speaking, but it just takes practice. Okay, and it's even worse when I obviously can't see your reaction to these. Right, so quite a few little bits to this. Okay, so as I said, right, couple of things. It's called a trinomial. In the previous ones, the highest common factor and the difference to squares, I explained to you kind of how you recognise them. But this one is the easiest to recognise because it's the only one. It's the only one with 3 bits. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this should definitely be the easiest one to recognise, and in my experience, it is the easiest one to recognise, to the point where everybody forgets the other ones, which is why I was saying you have to remember that there are 3, kind of 4. Okay, because everybody remembers trinomials and forgets the other 2. Okay, so how do you recognise them? There's 3. Easy. Now, I said I was teaching you the guide number method, and in the guide number method, the very first thing you have to do is get the guide number. Okay, and you get the guide number by multiplying the first by the last. Okay, let me explain that. So if you look at this, in front of the x squared there is an invisible 1. So what you do to get the guide number is you multiply the very first thing in the trinomial, which is the 1, by the very last thing in the trinomial, which is the 24. Okay, so we do 1 multiplied by 24, which is 24. Okay, so just try and number these so you have a sequence. So that's the first thing you do. You multiply the first by the last, just remembering that if there is no number in front of the x squared, it's an invisible 1 and you need that 1. Okay? A lot of the questions will have a number in front, so it's fine. It's just if it's missing, you have to put it in the 1. Right, so that's your guide number. The second step is you find all factor pairs for your guide number. Alright, so we take the 24 and we write our factor pairs. So 1 times 24, 2 by 12, 3 by 24, yeah, 3/8, 24, 4 by 6, 4 sixes, yeah, 24, 5, no, and 6 would just bring me back to this one. So I'm done. Okay, excellent. So step 3. you pick the factor pair that combines it can be by adding or subtracting. Okay. So you pick the factor pair that combines to give the middle number of the trinomial. Right, so let's go back. Middle number of the trinomial here is plus 11. Okay, so you can add or subtract these, and we're trying to get plus 11. So if you look at, now you'll do most of this in your head going forward. So 1 and 24, so if I add them, I get 25, which is not 11. And if I subtract them, I get 23, which is not 11. So that one's not going to work. 2 and 12, so add, I get 2 plus 12 is 14. Subtract, I get 12 minus 2 is 10. So closer, but no. 3 and 8, if I add them, 3 plus 8 makes 11. And now just to go down here to check, because sometimes, it's very rare, but sometimes 2 of them work. So here I have 4 plus 6 is 10, and 6 minus 4 is 2, so no. Okay, so I figured out one of my factor pairs that combines to give the middle number. Now, how did it combine? Did it combine by addition or by subtraction? Okay, so to get, if you look here, plus 11, using the numbers 3 and 8, it would need to be a plus 3 and a plus 8. Is that all right? Okay, so I'm just going to keep going with my little steps here. So step 4 is to rewrite the trinomial replacing the middle term with the chosen factor pair. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, so it started as, I'm just going to rewrite it because it's all scribbled over. So that's what it started as, okay? So we leave the 1x squared, and then what we do is we rewrite this bit, except instead of 11, we're going to use 3 and 8. So 11x can be a combination of 3x plus 8x. That makes sense? Okay, so we're splitting the 11 up into the 3 and the 8 because that's the one we chose over here. But the 11 has an x on it, so you need to put an x on each of them. So if we add 3x and 8x, we get 11x. So I'm basically just taking that 11x and rewriting it in terms of the factor pair over here that I chose. And then I have plus 24. Yeah? Okay, so now this bit you should actually know how to do. You use okay, so we're going to factorize what we're looking at, and we're going to use what we learned when we were doing the grouped highest common factors. Okay, so I'm going to pair off my first ones, and I'm going to pair off my second ones. Okay, so between 1 and 3, the highest common factor between 1 and 3 is 1. And here I have 2 x's, and here I have 1, so the common factor is x. I open up my bracket, and I'm going to divide this by the highest common factor and divide this by the highest common factor. So the 1 divided by the 1 gives me 1. This x will cancel with one of these, leaving 1 behind. This 1x is a positive 1x, so plus divided by plus, the signs are the same, so I'll get plus. 3 divided by 1 is 3, and the x cancel. Okay, second bracket, they're both pluses, so you can assume that you're going to pull a plus out. Remember, the problem is only when they're different. So do I have a common number? Highest common factor, yeah, 8 will divide into 8 and 24. And there's no letter because 24 doesn't have one. So open up my bracket, divide by that common factor, so plus 8, divide by plus 8. So signs are the same, which means the answer is going to be plus, that's fine. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and then the x is there. Signs are the same, so it's going to be plus. 24 divided by 8 is 3. And if you remember, we have to check if the brackets match before we can decide if we're right. So here, that's positive and that's positive. So here I have a plus 1x and here I have a plus 1x. And here I have a plus 3 and here I have a plus 3. So they match. So I write down the matching bracket, 1x plus 3, and the highest common factors in a bracket. So that is your answer. Okay, so I will do another one, right? But there's a lot in that. Like, don't expect to kind of, I mean, if you get to the end of it and you're like, oh yeah, I get that, great, but I wouldn't expect that. Like, you need to look over this a few times. Like, what the hell was I doing on each step? Yeah, so there's 5 steps to get through it. The 5th step you already know how to do because we did those grouping bits. It's more getting to that point. Okay, so you find your guide number. I explained how, first term and last term. You list all the factors of that guide number. Once you've them all listed, you have to pick one of them. The one that combines to give you that middle number. Okay, that's fine. Once you've picked, you go back to your original trinomial and you remove the middle term and replace it with the factors. So where I had 11x, I replaced it with over here with 3x and 8x. And then you're just doing highest common factor by grouping. Okay, so you set up your 2 groups. Figure out what your highest common factor is in terms of a number and then in terms of a letter if it exists. Divide everything by that highest common factor. Then check that your brackets match. Once they do, you write the matching bracket and you write the highest common factor bracket. Okay, so I'm going to do another one, but I'm not going to obviously write out all those steps again. We'll just do it. So, okay. So first thing we need to do is get that guide number. So the guide number is the first number by the last number. So in this case, I'm multiplying 2 by 3 and getting 6. Then you list all your factor pairs. So this should be a bit shorter. So the factor pairs are 1 times 6. Okay. Sorry, 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Yeah? Sorry, you'll realise what my was for now in a second. This is an example that I should show you. Okay, happy with that? So that is step 1, find your guide number, and step 2, find all the factors. So step 3, pick the factor pair that combines to give you the middle number in the trinomial. Okay, so middle number in the trinomial here is a plus 5. Okay, so let's have a look over here. So I can do 1 plus 6 and get 7, or I can do 6 minus 1 and get 5. So that works. Now, like I said the last time, you go on and check because sometimes 2 things work. And so I can add 2 and 3 to get 5, which also works. And you could do 3 minus 2 to get 1, which obviously doesn't. So they both could work. So now let's have a look at this, okay? So to get a 5 out of 1 and 6, I would need the 6. Now, so we're looking for a plus 5. So to combine 1 and 6 to get plus 5, I would need a minus 1 and a plus 6. Does that make sense? Minus 1 plus 6 makes plus 5. And to combine these, I'd need plus and plus. Yeah, plus 2 plus 3 makes plus 5. So let's have a look now. The guide number was 2 times 3, which was 6. That is an invisible plus, so we're looking for a positive 6. Now, look at our factors. If you multiply minus 1 by plus 6, you're multiplying different signs, so the answer is negative, and 1 times 6 is 6. If I multiplied plus 2 by plus 3, the plus by the plus is the same, so the answer would be plus, and 2 times 3 is 6. Okay? Now, this is a plus 6, and our guide number was a plus 6, which means the factor pair that you go with is this one. Okay, so let me say that again. In step 3 up here, I said that you pick the factor pair that combines to give the middle number. It can be addition or subtraction. So when I combine the 1 and the 6 by addition, it doesn't work. It doesn't give me 5. But when you combine it by subtraction, it does give you 5, which means that works. 6 and 1 can be combined to make 5. Our other factor pair is 2 and 3. When you combine them by addition, they also give you 5. So if that happens, and I did say it's rare, okay, but if that happens in a question where there's 2 possible factor pairs that work, what you then look at is the multiplication and see which one actually gives you back your guide number. So here, in order to use 1 and 6 to get a 5, I would need a minus on my 1 and a plus on my 6. When you multiply numbers with different signs, you get a minus. Whereas here, in order to combine 2 and 3 to get 5, they would both need to be plus. And when you multiply numbers with the same sign, you get a positive. And the guide number was a positive 6. So that's how you make your decision. Now you only need to look at that if there's 2 possibilities. Okay, and it doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Okay, so that step there, step number 3, if I put a little asterisk on it, you pick the factor pair that combines by addition or subtraction to give you the middle number. And just combining my asterisks there, if there are 2 that work, and by work I mean combine to give you the middle number, you must look at the multiplication and make sure, no, sorry, I'm not going to say make sure, I'm going to say, so you look at the multiplication and pick the one that multiplies to give back the guide number. Okay, I didn't want to write that in until I had done it. So that number 3, most of the time you're just picking a factor that combines, and as in my first example, only 1 will work. In the rare occasion that 2 work, you look at the multiplication. Okay, so I had 2 that worked. I put my signs on to make sure that they worked. So it was the subtraction that worked in the first one, so I put on my plus 6 and my minus 1. And it was the addition that worked in the second one, so I put on my add. I had 2 answers that generated this 5 that I wanted. So what do? I look at the multiplication. So when you multiply these 2, you get a minus 6, and that's not the guide number. The guide number was a plus 6. Okay? Okay, so rewrite the trinomial, replacing the middle term with the chosen factor pair. Right, so back up to my trinomial. I do my 2x squared, and now instead of 5x, this was the one I chose, so I'm going to write plus 2x and plus 3x. Okay, so I wanted a plus on the 2 and I wanted a plus on the 3, and they're making up 5x, so they both get an x. and then you have plus 3 at the end. Now we're into the final step, which is the highest common factor by grouping. So set up my groups. Okay, so highest common factor in numbers here is 2. This x squared, there's 2 of them. So I have 2 x's in the first term and I have 1 in the second, so I have a common 1. Open up my bracket, divide this by the common factor and divide this by the common factor. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and this x will take out one of the x's, leaving 1 behind. Here, this is positive, so same sign gives me plus. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and here the x's will take each other out. They're both pluses, so I will go with a plus in the centre. Common factor in terms of numbers is 3, and this has an x, but this has no letter, so I don't have a common letter. Open up my bracket, divide this by the common factor, and divide this by the common factor. So, both sides are the same, so my answer is positive, which is fine. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and the x, there's nothing to cancel it on the bottom, so it just stays there. Plus and plus signs are the same, so that's positive, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. So look at the 2 brackets and check if they match. Skinnier in that. So this is a plus 1x, and this here is a plus 1x, so they match. This is a plus 1, and this is a plus 1, so they match. So it means I'm done. Oh, love when that happens. So you write down your matching bracket, which is 1x plus 1, and you write down your highest common factors in a bracket, which is 2x plus 3. Okay, right, so like I said, that little occurrence there of the doubling up is very unusual, but it is something you need to know. I can't scroll back up, but anyway. So yeah, have a look over that a few times. I would suggest you nearly play the first step, do the first step, play the second step, do the second step, play the... do you know what I mean? Like, go step by step through it. I'm going to give you 3 for homework. So if you do it step by step for the first one, maybe step by step for the second one, and then for the third one, have a go and see can you get through it, and then go back and check the step by step. But I suppose the big thing here is just give yourselves a break. Okay, this isn't easy. And please let me know if you're struggling with it. All right.